Podcast is brought to you by Bonus Root Productions, and we own this town.
I am Jason T. Mears, Esquire.
And I'm Kelly Hoyle Bullock.
And we are San Dimas Today. How's it going, Kelly?
Pretty good. You know, I'm hanging in there.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm relieved.
Excited to be back on the mic, sitting across from you, talking about two of my favorite movies of all time.
What movies are those?
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, also Bogus Journey.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so here's what I have on the docket for us to discuss today, my friend. We are going to discuss Station, and then you've brought a song for us to discuss, right, from the soundtrack for Bogus Journey?
That's right. We're gonna dip into Bogus Journey soundtrack this time, talk about The Perfect Crime by Faith No More.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love Faith No More, and I love that band so much back in the day. Still love them now, but they were just the epitome of cool then. And if we have time, we're going to talk about Mondo's reissue of the soundtrack for the original movie on vinyl.
One of us owns it. The other one does not.
You'll find out who.
Feel the jealousy build.
Yeah. Okay, so, Kelly, break down for me the origin of Station and how Station came to be in the movie Bogus Journey. And before we do, maybe we discuss, for those who don't remember, Station is a pair of Martians from the second movie who help Bill and Ted out by building good robot us's.
Right. So kind of the setup. Bill and Ted were murdered by evil robots sent by Dinos. And fast forward, they get sent to hell. Finally, they decide to play the Grim Reaper. Beat him at a game.
Beat him at 5 games?
5 out of 9. Was that finally what settled it, or was it 4 out of 7?
Oh, it was 4 out of 7. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yep. 4 out of 7.
Was it Twister that finally did it, or did they do something after Twister?
It was Twister. Twister was the final. Final game.
So then, as they were going to be made alive again, they realized there's no way they could beat the evil robot us's. They're just too strong. So they asked Death to help them out by getting them someone that could build good robot us's, and Death took them to heaven.
Yeah,
which was interesting in and of itself. And iterations of heaven in movies are always fun.
That one was great. It absolutely jives with the vibe from Defending Your Life, the Albert Brooks movie. They're kind of similar. Although Defending Your Life has trams and things like that. No, you don't see that in the heaven in Bogus Journey.
They had to go before God, but even to get in heaven, they had to mug a couple of people and get their coats and hats.
To be fair, they did apologize to God when they got in front of him.
They confessed.
Yeah, they absolutely confessed.
So this is Catholic heaven? Or
it's a heaven I'd want to live in, I think. You got some pretty great charades. You got dudes walking around in boxing garb. You've got people from all walks of life there in heaven hanging out.
There were some people in swimsuits just walking through. Mm-hmm. Apparently, if you look good in a swimsuit, you're going to heaven.
Yes. Also, I'm pretty sure I saw a little leaguer in there in heaven.
So you're saying I've got a chance?
You've got a chance. But, you see that little leaguer in heaven and you're like, oh my God, what is the tragedy that led that young child to go to heaven?
Well, they basically go before God like it's the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, absolutely.
Pretty much they're all standing there in front of them and they lay out this plan, and God sends this little orb of light.
Turns into a disc.
That's right. It's translucent disc.
Yeah.
It's a map. I don't know. And then they go out into a social party.
Yeah, they do.
It just looks like everyone's hanging out, and before you know it, they're standing next to Ben Franklin and
Albert Einstein.
Einstein's there. And then Death kind of chides them, and they're like, "You didn't expect it to be, someone from Earth as the greatest scientist of all time."
Mm-hmm. So Station is there, playing charades with everyone, and it's the two stations. Mm-hmm. Later on, we find out that Station can fuse into one giant station and become even smarter and more intelligent.
After the shopping spree at the electronics store.
Yes.
Which is kind of what we get instead of the shopping mall this go-round.
Right, but you do get that wonderful scene with William Sadler as Death chiding the smoker.
Oh, yeah.
See you real soon. But Station fusing into the one is the perfect metaphor for Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Because you've got these two characters that are basically indistinct, and when they join forces, they're even greater than they are on their own.
So would that mean that one head is better than two? That's my question to you.
Nelson might have something to say about that. Also, Dweezil Zappa. But I think you're right. I think in this instance, one head is better than two. So, you were doing some research and you found out like how Station actually came into the script, right?
Well, I think, and you had told me where they had gotten the word actually came from. Was it like a script error or something?
Yeah, it was a editing process. They were trying to cut out this entire scene that was supposed to take place on a police station, and they'd cut everything out of their final draft software. And when they went back and looked at it, just the word station was left in the script.
And so was it that same night where basically Chris Madison, Ed Solomon, they're just getting drunk and they're just tweaking out and they're just yelling the word station
we don't know
over and over again?
They might have just been punch drunk from the writing process.
I want to say what that fanboy or fan club fanboy, we are fanboys, but that fan club podcast that they did, they interviewed him, and it was something to that effect where they were talking about that.
That is so great.
And they had this alien scientist character, and they didn't know what to name it, and so they decided to use Station.
That's so perfect. It's just so great.
And wasn't that like William Sadler or somebody? It's like that was their one complaint with the script. They were just like, "What the hell is Station?"
Yeah, it's really kind of weird when you go into Bogus Journey. If you're a kid and you've seen Excellent Adventure, a dozen times, like I had by the time that Bogus Journey came out, and you see Bill and Ted University, and everybody's wearing those bright day glow foam pants and giant boots and having trouble walking around, and then all the students go in the classroom, and Rufus shows up. And he says, he greets everyone at Station, and it is students. I think they say Station back, right? And
right.
Yeah,
right.
so that you're like, what is this? What's going on here? And you're just like, that's weird. Maybe it's some weird future thing that they threw in.
I think that's a great origin for Station. I think it's a great weird thing that movie had running through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. What I love about Bogus Journey, and you and I, we've had discussions about which one of the films is our favorite, and I think where we've currently landed is the first one is your favorite, and right now the second one's still my favorite.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because I don't think there's a wrong answer to that question.
Well, it's really working out for this podcast.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is. What I love about the sequel is it has the flavor of another one of my favorite sequels, Gremlins 2, where the sequel just takes the original and goes bonkers with it. It no holds barred. It doesn't try and just do the first one bigger. It just goes in a completely different direction, makes everything 10 times as weird.
It's incredible.
It is. I love it so much because of that. And the weirdness of Station plays into that. The heaven and hell as opposed to the time travel. You've still got them using time travel later on to jump around and fix things. Mm-hmm. And it does end with a big presentation just like the first one, but it's significantly different.
It's funny because with the end of Excellent Adventure, you have the history report, which is sort of the great big event at the end. And with Bogus Journey, it's a battle of the bands.
It is.
Supposedly a really important battle of the bands. And there were a lot of those that seemed to be existing in movies, or maybe just like the idea that like these concerts would be such a big deal. I'm trying to think, like, what was at the end of Wayne's World there? Was that just like a audition for was that just a performance for a big time producer?
Yeah,
Is that what that was?
I think that was the case. They were trying to make it
because the idea that this was an event watching the San Dimas Battle of the Bands was an event.
I'll take it one further. This is the 4th annual San Dimas Battle of the Bands.
Okay.
So it's been around for 4 years.
4 years.
So
it's a vibrant music scene there.
It is a very vibrant enough to get Primus to play it.
Right.
And I love Wild Stallions, but I don't know if at that point in the career they're a better band than Primus with Tom Waits.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about the difference in the American, musical landscape between the first movie and the second movie. That it's vast. It
is vast. And the second one came out right on the precipice of grunge taking over the world. Mm-hmm. If this movie comes out 2 years later, the soundtrack looks 80% different, not completely different.
And it's a weird mix of kind of both.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those worlds colliding. That sort of the end of, I mean, I don't want to just say metal, but it was like the end of
It was kind of the end of popular hair metal, for sure.
Popular metal? Pop metal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely the case. You've got people on there like Megadeth, but you've also got people like there on Faith No More. Now, Faith No More had been around for several years before, and they continued on to great success after this. I don't know if a lot of those songs stay on the soundtrack if it's a post-Nevermind world.
It's true. So, speaking of Faith No More, and talking about Station, you have at the end of the opening scene, I guess, of Bogus Journey, when Rufus is addressing the class, he introduces Jim Martin of Faith No More. What I love is he introduces him as Sir James Martin, as the head of the Faith No More Spiritual and Theological Center, which is just awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
the fact that George Carlin is saying this about Jim Martin, I don't know if George Carlin even knows who Faith No More is when he's filming that at the time, but I would like to think he did.
Yeah, so would I. It just so great.
Faith No More, I mean, that holds a dear spot for the two of us, like in our youth.
For sure.
And you've even got kind of a personal connection, sort of,
yeah,
right?
Sort of, like 3 degrees away. So
right.
Growing up, I worked in this tub factory, and the main employee there, he was in a local Nashville band called the Mammy Nams. And they had opened up for Faith No More when they came through Nashville. And I don't know if they played more than one show with them, but they had opened up for Faith No More. And that's how I got introduced to Faith No More. Probably at a period in my life where I'm listening to the Monkees and, like 60s greatest hits. And I hear Faith No More from this guy that I idolized as a kid. I'm just blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that epic video,
amazing.
I mean, it was just on such a heavy rotation at the time. Mm-hmm. When there was no internet, basically, for all those hours I would spend on the internet now, I was watching MTV at the time.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Which had its, at the heaviest rotation, had the same 20 videos going. But Epic was right there for I don't know how long.
It was that fish flopping around to the piano at the end. That still haunts me.
Yeah.
So good. So good. So before we get too much further into the Faith No More stuff and talking about a perfect crime, I want to raise some questions about Station, or at least one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they're in heaven, and Station is the only Martian that we see in heaven.
You're right.
So
heaven's pretty whitewashed, I'm going to say.
It's really whitewashed.
It's I mean, it wasn't 100% white people, but it was 95% white people, and it was all white.
Yeah,
with some outside of the people, but it was just the whole thing was white.
Some purple hues to the clothing.
With maybe, yeah. There's a little color in the clothing.
That probably just had to be there so that it didn't all white.
It reminded me of My Fair Lady, the Ascot scene.
Oh,
that's basically what it felt like.
Ascot, dude. I rewatched Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey recently, and Ted's dad is wearing an ascot at the princess's birthday party. It's like he's wearing a necktie in the style of an ascot.
Oh, that's great.
At the 521st birthday party for the princesses. And I was like, whoa, Ted's dad.
A lot changed for him that was never addressed.
That's true. Was that like Missy's positive influence?
I hope so.
Yeah?
I hope so. Missy's just spreading love all around the Bill and Ted's universe.
She is. Missy has left Bill's dad for Ted's dad. And strongly insinuated that she had an affair with Professor Ryan from the first movie. Yes, absolutely. She also flirts with Colonel Oates in the second movie.
Right.
And ends up marrying Dimas.
Yeah, Dimas.
I mean, go Chuck, good for him. But
I wonder if Missy really would have done that. I don't know.
Okay, so you're watching the first movie, and it seems like Bill's house is a little bit nicer than Ted's house. It seems like Bill's family's probably doing a little bit better financially.
Bill's a little more spoiled.
Yeah, a little bit more spoiled.
I mean, his like stepmother's picking him up with like snacks in the back.
Right, they got a nice car. It's a convertible. He's got his own bedroom. It's a 2-story house. Seems to be doing pretty well. The S. Preston Esquire family's doing all right for themselves. Ted's house is like a 1-story ranch. It looks a little bit darker. I'm not saying it's run down or that Ted's dad isn't doing great, but you kind of get the feel that maybe Bill's family's doing a little bit better. Second movie.
Though Deacon looked like he had a pretty nice watch for however old he was.
You're right, and he did.
And his name's Deacon.
Deacon Logan is a terrible name. Deacon Logan is just an awful name. I don't name your kids Deacon Logan. It just doesn't sound good. It doesn't roll off this. That guy's not getting hired anywhere, based on a resume. That's all I'm saying. I see Deacon Logan. I'm not
hopefully, it just exists to make Theodore Logan that much better.
Yeah, I mean, Theodore Logan is a great name. I think everybody can agree that Theodore Logan is a wonderful name. Okay, so second movie, back to the houses. Second movie, Missy is having her seance scene, right? And she's like in a really nice, bright, white house. And, maybe that's not taking place at Ted's place. Maybe that's at one of Missy's friends. That scene, by the way, also features cameos from Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson as...
they're the waiters.
No, that's the first movie.
Oh, wait, the first movie. I'm sorry.
Movie, they're the waiters at...
Who are they in the second movie?
They are the two dudes in the seance scene.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's right.
So they are there at the seance scene.
Caught that.
At first, you're like, maybe they're not.
Great.
Maybe they're not at Ted's house because Ted's house is a little bit not as nice as this house that this is taking place at. But Bill and Ted know to go there for the seance to find them, and then later on, the evil robot us's crash through that same living room when they're terrorizing Missy and kidnap the princesses.
Right.
So it's maybe Missy is the one with the money. Is what I'm saying.
That's interesting.
I think she's the one that's well off, and she's just following her heart with moving around.
She's just she's in the acquisitions of husbands. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, she's young. She's trying to figure things out.
Not as fully fleshed out as I would have liked, but it was nice for her to have that seance scene.
It was. Because Bill's dad only gets a reaction shot in the second movie. You see him looking terrible eating the Twinkie.
I mean, the princesses get names in the second movie. Did not even have names in the first one.
Did they not have names in
I
the
don't
second
believe
one?
they had the names Joanna and
Elizabeth,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so...
And different actresses,
yeah,
I think,
and
right?
different actresses, yeah. That,
I think
that
both
got
of them
recast.
were different,
just mind-boggling. That's a issue I have with the first film. There's almost no agency for the princesses whatsoever. Regardless, we were talking about Station.
We were.
So Station being the only Martians in heaven. So they're also the smartest scientists in the universe, right? Or at least the solar system. So did they get into heaven because they're so smart? Like, did they find Christ on Mars and then get converted, or did they build some sort of machine that would allow them to travel to humanity's version of the afterlife and play charades?
Was Oppenheimer in heaven?
I don't know.
But Einstein was.
Einstein absolutely was. Also, were there any musicians in the heaven scene? Who played Saint Peter?
So that was Taj Mahal, the blues guitarist. He was the gatekeeper. That I did not realize until just last night. Okay,
to be fair, when you first watched this movie, did you have any idea who Taj Mahal was?
No, it was probably a few years before I even knew who Taj Mahal was.
So it's pretty clear that the Bill and Ted movies, the Heaven and Hell, are based in the Judeo-Christian ethos, right?
Right.
You've got your classic,
everything's white. It's heaven.
It's heaven. You've got St. Peter there.
There's a devil in hell.
There's absolutely a devil in hell. So I think that's pretty safe.
Though the personal hells, as a kid watching those personal hells were absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, for
the idea of your own personal hell, I probably first thought about that upon seeing Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I had considered it before that.
Oh man, so hardcore. Something really interesting is they ended up changing the end of Bogus Journey. Those personal fears were going to manifest in real life and chase down Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
And I didn't find out about this until I read the original comic book adaptation, which we'll talk about later. But you get to read in the comic book adaptation the actual original ending of Bill and Ted. Okay, so Station's voice.
You can't talk Station without talking the gentleman who voiced him, which was Frank Welker.
Yeah.
So Frank Welker is this prolific voice. He's done Megatron as well as other Transformers. He's Fred on Scooby-Doo, Nibbler on Futurama.
Also, and my 5-year-old daughter's going to love this, the voice of Totoro.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Oh.
At least in the American dub.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. So
if you don't know, Jason's dog, his name is Totoro. Jason has a Newfie. Jason has the biggest dog I've ever seen in my life.
It's a big gray Newfie named Totoro, and he's adorable.
He's adorable.
Yeah. We've watched Totoro in my house many, many times. Probably not Bill and Ted level, but many, many times. So, Frank Welker, amazing talent. Just another excellent addition to this cast. Any other thoughts on Station right now?
You know, it's hands down one of my favorite parts of Bogus Journey. Just, I think it helps keep that movie weird.
Yeah.
The bongo players at the end.
Yeah, they joined the band.
Any of those sweet news clips that run during the credits, did that address Station at all? Do you know?
I think it addressed the Wild Stallions playing on Mars.
Okay.
So I don't know if there were any other specific. It'll be a joy to go back and look at that and see to answer that.
I wonder if they do this rumored third movie. Could they bring Station into it? They've got to, right?
They have got to.
I know William Sadler's in, so you can't have William Sadler without Station.
Yeah, Station. You watch it now. He doesn't look great, but he looks so much better than if they would have tried to do CGI at that point.
Right.
Because that's a couple years before T2, where they really got that. Where they got that down.
I definitely don't. I don't love CGI or overuse of it, and just something to be said for the puppetry and having. Station looked like he was straight out of...
Dark Crystal?
Dark Crystal.
Oh, yeah.
Station looked straight out of Dark Crystal. Mm-hmm. Maybe in that little forest in The Princess Bride.
Oh,
Station,
the Swamp Rats. He totally
maybe
looks
Station
like one of the
would have hung
Swamp
out there. I don't know. Station and Yoda. Sure.
Oh, puppets are the way to go.
But I'm kind of glad Station was Frank Welker and not Frank Oz. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to put that out there.
Frank Oz seems to be taking dumps on people these days who are doing things different with the... Frank Oz does some great work.
Is Frank Oz an asshole now?
I don't know if he's an... I think he is not afraid to voice his opinion. I've not disagreed with everything he said, but I'm just surprised every time I see something that has Frank Oz, reference is like very contentious. You would think the voice of Fozzie the Bear would be a little bit more laid back. Frank Welker also did the Easter Bunny and Satan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you want to talk about The Perfect Crime?
Sure, let's do it.
Excellent!
All right, so we're back, and we're going to talk to you today about, we discussed it before when we were talking about Station. We talked about Faith No More.
Yeah.
Jim Martin, the lead guitarist at the time, had the famous cameo at the beginning, uttered those words, Station, back when we didn't know what that was.
Yeah, that was the second time it came out. And just, whoa, Martin screaming Station. This must be a real thing. I didn't mishear it 30 seconds ago.
So, it seems to me, and I would just guess, with Bogus Journey, they had a bigger budget to work with, and that got them some higher profile names on the soundtrack. And I think at the time, you can argue that Faith No More was freaking hot. They, Epic, I think, was big upon the release. Mm-hmm. And they got a song on the soundtrack called The Perfect Crime. We'll play a little bit of that for you. So this song, which I love, that bass line is monstrous. And what's great is because that song was written by the bassist Billy Gold.
Was it?
And he's really the heart and soul of the band. I mean, which I think that's great. Like any band where you can find the bass player is sort of the central person of that band. A lot of people like to think it's Mike Patton, but Mike Patton wasn't even the original lead singer. He replaced Chuck Mosley. You know, obviously they were better with Mike Patton.
Mike Patton is one of the greatest vocalists of his generation.
Right. This song was I don't know that it was originally written for the soundtrack. I would like to maybe guess that it was probably an outtake from The Real Thing, or
I would say that if it wasn't written for the soundtrack, then I think it was at least re-recorded or recorded for the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because you got that breakdown in the middle of the song where
right. And it was originally released and done for the soundtrack. I couldn't find a whole lot about like just the specific why they wrote it. But it did come out on the soundtrack, and then it came out on non-US pressings of Angel Dust.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then it ended up on another compilation, and it's actually the last song on their greatest hits too.
Oh,
so
sweet.
Yeah.
No, I wonder if that version has Station in the middle of it.
Ooh, good question. Maybe it doesn't. I bet they probably took that out. The real tragedy is that I don't know, and we're talking about the song now.
No, this is a great if anybody out there knows, please let us know and save us the time of, Googling it ourselves.
You look at the song, you look at these lyrics, they're dark, and it's kind of like, to me, feels like it moves in that, I guess whereas two heads are better than one, those lyrics are just kind of, I don't know if they're as dark as they are just, what's the word?
Jarring. They're jarring. They're jarring for their placement.
With this one, it's just dark, and it's like, to me, it's kind of, the musical landscape at the time, we're now coming in with just darker stuff. And I for one, ate it up. I loved it at the time. With Faith No More, even though I don't know that I would lump them in with the grunge movement so much.
No,
but they had that sort of lyrical kind of similar in their lyrical take.
Well, they predated it. So they
predated it, yeah.
They were heavy metal without being characters of heavy metal. Like, their name was not Megadeth. They weren't like...
They were happening in San Francisco as opposed to L.A., which is, they were coming up right when Metallica was coming up. I hate using the word darker like I mean dark, like,
dark and gritty.
But yeah, I don't know. It was grittier. It was. The stuff in San Francisco was grittier than L.A. metal-wise. And then you had everything coming out of Seattle right about the same time where it was just this... decidedly different take on life, right? Like,
well, it's a difference between like, hey, we're Motley Crue, we're partying, Megadeth, let's sing about Satan. It was, hey, everybody's on heroin.
It's about people killing people.
It is,
and of course it comes in the movie when they're in the back of the van after being kidnapped by the. Well, at this point. They're asked to go along on a journey with the evil robot us's.
Right, the audience knows that they are the evil robot us's.
Yeah.
But they do not know. Bill and Ted do not know that the other Bill and Ted are the evil robot us's.
Right, and they start realizing this while they're in the back of the van, and the evil robots are being total assholes.
Yeah. Yes,
they're complete dicks.
Right, that other user complete dick.
And what's great is like earlier in the movie, they're watching Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
and. I didn't think to look up the name of that rock that Captain Kirk takes them up on, like it's on a different planet in the show.
Right.
But that's exactly where the evil robots take them up to murder them.
What a great little gag.
Yeah.
For the movie, because it works on a couple different levels. Because I just love that. It just pleases me to no end to see that. The other day, my daughter was watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and they use the exact same rock. Someday I'll show you the, what that means.
Some of the dark lyrics in here. The bitterness is hard to hide. It smells like homicide. Just nod and say it's okay. I can hear your voice echo. Okay, I lied. It's really the voice of the guy who kicked your head in. Look in the mirror.
This was the dark song that we were
Yeah.
It is dark, and it does match though the tonal shift between the first movie and the second movie.
Right.
The first movie is
there's no murder.
There is no murder. I mean, you do have a war scene.
You have a war scene, okay.
Yeah, you have a war scene.
But you really don't have any on-screen death, even when you think you do.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you think Ted is getting killed, potentially, even though...
By that evil metal dude.
Even as the audience at the time, as a kid, I didn't possibly think he was going to die, but...
Right.
Yeah, it's just... Murder's not really... They escape from the castle, people trying to kill them, but it never happens.
The first movie is much more lighthearted.
Yeah.
The second one gets darker, and, there's more adversity in the second film.
Mm-hmm.
The first film doesn't have a villain. There's no villain in the first movie.
Yeah.
There is a villain in the second movie. Chuck Denamla.
Who creates the robots who are villains, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got sort of a Shredder, Rocksteady Bebop thing going on.
Absolutely. Well, nice, yeah.
I don't know. I just thought of that one.
I didn't see that coming, but yeah, it's totally true.
We always will thank Scott Bricklin and Scooby Tunes Music for letting us use Walk Away.
Such a great song.
And then, of course, We Own This Town. Everyone out there, please be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dimas Today.
Don't look at me. Okay, I can only do this if you don't look at me. See, this is the problem we had in high school.
It is. All right. Go for it, my brother.
I'm just kidding.
Go for it.